going to start the streaming up. We're going to see where the numbers go. Everything should be good. Because supposedly they fixed everything. We don't have an intro because nobody fixed that. But we'll see how things go. Well, it is not 4 o'clock though. Intro's still not fixed. Black screen's still not fixed. But I do have this. And nobody's in yet. So we will see. Oh, David made it in. Good afternoon. And Alonzo's in. Hey. So it is working. It's supposed to be, this part of it's supposed to be working, like I said. The intro's missing still. But we have a little problem, and part of that problem is Trevor's been very, very busy. Hey, Glenn. So he had a game. He's not getting in until 9, 10 o'clock at night. So he's very aware, but he's been kind of worn out and a little, we will say, hangry by the time he gets home. He's hungry and he is upset about things, and it's just long days. So I think Monday he had do volleyball broadcast, and then Tuesday was a girls flag football broadcast. Wednesday was another volleyball broadcast. Then he had a meeting conference thing to go to yesterday, and then today he has, it's Friday Night Lights, so it's varsity football. Hey Kent, so he has been just rolling in here late at night. Today there was a parade or something too. So Tyler and I got this fixed as far as being connected. So we should be connected and have no problem with that. There's Ed and then Matthew. Okay, Matthew's life. Is that what it is? But so everything should be up and running. There's Lacey. How come Lacey gets that special symbol like she's really important? She's bartending. She wants to just say hello. Well, hello, Lacey. I have my drink, so I'm good. Don't worry. Tip your waitresses and bartenders. But yeah, how come you got a little icon thing and David doesn't? Dennis has one too, from Washington, and then I don't know what it is. Country Carpenter's in, so unlike last week, this week at least we're back inside. It's warmer out today. Today would not have been a fun day to stand out there. It's 97 from tapping the live. Okay, now you're purple. So you got a crown and it's purple. It's Matthew. Oh, no, never say it's Mama. That's what my grandchildren call me. I'm sorry. Got that angle on the monitors to fit them up here. And yeah, I was looking over. Familiarity. Oh, anyhow. So, kind of a busy week till coming down to today. I'm working on a couple things. I have the Dawns of Arizona, one of the gold troughs here. So I'm refurbishing another one each year. I'm trying to refurbish one. So I've been working on that this week to get it back to the camp so that Woody will be able to use it during the prospecting demo Saturday morning. So I should be able to get that out at the end of this week and get it stored down there ready for rendezvous. Try to start getting things in order. So, but yeah, it wasn't a terrible week. The weather was nice. And we should be heading to better and better weather as the month goes. I think we got rain coming up in another week again, so that will be nice. Hey, Dallas, what's up? No hola, huh, Dallas? Must be tired. Or lost the Mexican in you. Ugh. So anyways, it was kind of a quiet week, even though I did see Greg Davis. And a person who guests here occasionally pops in, and Paul Shimmick. Paul was over at Greg, so I ran in and got to talk to Paul briefly, which was nice. No matter how brief, but I knew he had research and things he was doing while he was in town, so I didn't want to get in the way too much. But I stopped by Greg's to pick up some information on some stuff and picked up a box of They have a couple old negatives from the 1930s and then some old film. He gave me some film, I think it's from Roosevelt. It's like the anniversary of Roosevelt, 50th anniversary. I don't know what year Roosevelt went in, but it's old 8mm film footage. So I got that transferred. And there's some other stuff, so I'll be getting that back to him. So there's always stuff. There it is. There's the Ola Wayne and all. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of it. So it was kind of a quiet, nice week. Trying to catch some things up, got some things cleared up here. Was trying to work on some slides and photos and negatives, and then work on some film stuff, which takes a long time to click through and get it done. And then there's always the preparations of the rendezvous, of kind of lining stuff up, which 14th, 15th, 16th, and Saturday should be a pretty cool day. 7:30 in the morning we'll get started. We'll head back up Cardiac, up into Barks Canyon. Hey, there you go. Kim's ready. I hope the knees are there. If the knees are not, we still got jobs for you. But where I should start, I start thinking wood by the Rendezvous, Big Ramada, or down by the amphitheater. Put it by the Big Ramada, and hopefully, I don't know if anybody's really been out there. I'll be out there here and there, but it should make its way. I got some wood too. I'm going to drop off down there. Again, we will see Dallas. Kim, you lost my train of thought. It's not easy, but anyways, we're doing the hike in the morning, and so 10 o'clock Woody should start Tono National Forest around 11 or after 11 when Woody wraps up, and then John Wayne Galloway be talking. People have lunch. We'll see who else might pop in or have something to say. And then the evening program, we have a number of different people, kind of, I don't know if you call it headline, but Jason Fritz will be there talking, Greg Davis, be some other people. So, and I'm still a couple people I'm trying to wrap in. That would be very interesting. I'm still looking for that guy. What was his name? Hold it. Glenn Rogers. I was trying. He was bugging us so much and always going on about his 10 reasons it's not in the Superstitions. And I thought, well, we can help you sell your little book. And it's like, I hate that when people are like pushing that stuff out there and then they just don't get a hold of you. Knees are good. Took forever to heal. Damn. Well, if you want to test them out, Cardiac's the place. And if you can't do it, you can always have people back in camp kind of keeping things, because you are one of the official Dons, along with Dallas. Dallas is a Don now. And myself and Greg. And we'll have people that kind of can take care of other things, because Cardiac's kind of weeds out people. It's not a long hike. It's just that first part is the fun one. So, but that one, part of the reason for that trip is there's some markings and some different carvings down in there, but there was one by Rick Gwynn he always talked about. And how about Larry? Well, Larry becomes a Don after the rendezvous. He's not with us yet, but yes, he's got to do this Sunday at Highway Cleanup, and then he's got to do the rendezvous, and then he's done. So he's got 2 more things to do to check off his list. Wayne, was in your channel and it didn't show live. Had to go back to my home. Don't know why. But yeah, so he'll be in there. Frank will be there, but I don't know if you can trust Frank to take care of anything. So, and Dean and Jody Monday will be there, and Stephen Melanie Gibbs. So there'll be quite a number of Dons around, but there's the rendezvous Dons that can help run some stuff, and then there's the Dons that just hang around. Dave usually shows up too, so all told, there could be a dozen or so of us around. But yeah, we'll see how the programs work. Like I said, there's a couple people, and that guy was one guy I wanted, Glenn Rogers. I thought, well, he'll jump on because he's been very vocal about his book and how we're all a bunch of numbskulls. And yeah, Kim will cook. See, Kim will cook up and be watching the chili and stuff again. The other thing, we did the polls. I don't know if everybody caught the polls. I started messing around and doing those posts where they have the polls on YouTube, and I did 4 or 5 of them. And it did surprise me because on the polls, I had one of pick the year that Jacob Waltz died, and most everybody got it wrong. The most popular answer was 1889. You hate when the students fail the quiz, but Jacob Waltz died in 1891. So I always kind of remember it. 1890s when they sat down Christmas Day, and 1891 October 25th is when he died. But yeah, we put up a few of those polls so everybody could kind of look at those and stuff and kind of start messing with that. It was funny because it told me on YouTube, it said, to get a lot more, viewership and all this, you can just do polls. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'll kick it off. And I think the one poll has 43 people checked it. And I'm like, okay, those shorts we do far better than that. So I don't know how the polls are supposed to be such a big deal. Didn't Tom Collin or Bob Corbin say that the LDM was in the Super Bradshaws? That was briefly. They had that moment. Well, they were old, right? That was that whole Billy Bueno mine thing, and them and Joe Roboto and Glover for a while got really hung up in. That was, there was a time when they really all jumped on that, and then Tom jumped somewhere else. There was a time Tom didn't even believe it existed at all. He said it might just be a fantasy. That got Greg Davis up. Polls are cool. And I got in 1891, so Glenn was one of the people that knew. But, yeah, it's, I never made fun of Tom of that because the whole Billy Bueno thing, that's where they were going camping too. It was like a bunch of guys going hanging out together up in Prescott. And then they go out, and it was the Billy Bueno mine became this big deal. And that became the Lost Dutchman. Then they changed it again, but that was a period of time when there was a lot of camping going on with Bob Corbin, Tom Collenborn, Joe Roboto, and Thomas Glover. So they were all hanging together with the wives, and that was kind of what was transpiring and all that. So I did not attend any of those because that was like the old man's club. But yeah, if you ever, it was kind of weird. Each of them individually, kind of very fun to talk to and stuff, and you get them together, and then it was just what? But yeah, I don't know who pushed the lead on that. Joe was always the flag bearer of stuff like that. But I don't know who it was. I'm sure good chance on that was Thomas Glover, who also believed it was over on Malapai and also believed it was somewhere else. So I don't know. Alcohol, that's funny because those guys didn't really drink. None of them really drank at that time. I'm trying to remember. Joe would bring some beers, but I don't remember ever seeing him drink. Him and Carolyn would go to bed at the Rendezvous while everybody else was still drinking. Tom, I don't remember being much of a drinker. Bob Corbin, I don't remember him ever drinking with us. He'd sit around and talk and stuff, but I don't remember him drinking. And Thomas Glover, I do know he'd drink wine and stuff. He liked wine, brandy, stuff like that. I don't know if he was ever a beer guy and stuff. He was different. He got up one morning, he brought a cappuccino machine or something. He's like, "Hey Wayne," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're up early." And I was sitting down by the big Ramada, or it was early in the morning. Most nobody was up. Sun had just broke, and I turned, and he was in the what we call the it was the coffee shack for the Dons, and he had been camped in there. And he goes, "Hey, you want a cup of something warm you up?" And it was actually kind of a cool morning. I said, "Yeah, sure." So I figure I'm getting a cup of coffee, and it was he was making cappuccino, which did wake me up. Had my toes tingling. So, but all I could think of, Randy came down that day, and I was like, you know what? Glover just gave me a cup of cappuccino, and he looks at me, and I said, "Yeah, who makes cappuccino in the mountains?" But different people, different tastes. So So there's that. But yeah, this week we're getting ready for the October Chasing Legends. We'll see how those do. See, now here's another thing. Everybody think about this. So we do the stories, and I go through, and I always try to pick what I think usually doesn't follow the others. It kind of like is different enough. So each week it kind of varies a bit, and it's that's my usually my thought is I don't want anything because a lot of these stories can kind of get, as someone in a podcast telling my stories once did, get them all put together because there are similar threads to some of them. A couple guys in the mountains and whatever, and then one story becomes three, which I talked about. So I always try to do a job, but I always look at them and then say, okay, title it this or that for Trevor because that'll get people's attention. So I thought the Fred Schrader murder one was going to do really, really well because I thought, and Trevor was like, yeah, that one's going to do good because Fred Schrader and the whole thing and Promac and anybody that knows that would be, yeah. So I had that thought. It's not done great. And I'm like, man, I don't get that bit. But we had that footage from a couple of years ago of us just hanging around with shoes up at Goldfield, and we decided to go over and just look at the wasp. And I told Trevor, grab your camera, man. And then we just hung around with shoes and just weren't trying to film Chasing Legends. We were just filming stuff and figured, well, let's film it while we're here before any of the stuff gets tore down or taken away. So we can talk through it and stuff, preserve that. And that video did really good. So, and it's like I always go back. When I did the Angie and the reptile people and the superstitions, I thought, people are going to give me crap. Nobody's going to watch that video. That video is absolutely ridiculous to no end. That's going to be the video of videos. And let me see here. Hold it. No, there's the latest. Okay, let's go to the most popular videos. And our first video was the most popular. Our second video was the second most popular. Third most popular video we ever did was the lizard people, and it's like 160,000 people. So, go figure that one. I thought that one was going to bomb. And the lizard people ends up being one of the most talked about. There's so many of those people that have used that story. And that was another thing, because I did the stick man, and then Trevor said we should do a proper stick man. So we did it, a couple of years ago? And we did that video, and it's done okay. But I said, well, that one will be big, and that'll blow up and all that. And that's the story everybody will take. To be honest, they steal the lizard story, the Needle Canyon, the Boulder Canyon story. They never take the Lost Dutchman store one, which has the photo. They never touch that. And they never touch the Stickman, which would be the two that I would think, well, one has a photograph, and there's something there in the photograph. You think that would be it. And it's just so funny. You cannot predict what anybody will actually watch or do. You don't know what the logistics are, what their life schedule is. But it always just throws me off. So I was violated. Well, there's not much you can do about it. I mean, is that like a reverse bestiality, possibly? Get Shoes and Frank to hunt down the lizard man. I think both of them would stay home. So, and that's one of those things I never understand is, okay, have you ever heard Clay Worth talk about the lizard man? No. Tom Collenborn ever addressed that? No, and there's a reason for it. And then that stupid story. But I knew, in doing these stories during October, which several stories got thrown out pretty quick because I do research it a little. But I tried to get that Cherry Hinkle woman, and she had a new release book and all that. And for a couple of years now, I really tried to get her to come on and say, well, I'll do an interview, I'll do something, because you have 2 stories in the book that I've talked about. It'll help sell books. So if you like going to, I guess I don't have the kind of money she wants that she gets at conferences or something to even interest her, because I never even heard back. And I'm thinking, man, I'd put you on. You'd sell some books. Most of you don't even know she has a book out. People would buy her some of her books. But she has no interest whatsoever to even reply to me. So, oh well, Cherry Hinkle. There you go. Screw you and your book. I won't even put it up on the screen for people to see. And I did order the book. And the whole purpose behind all of it was I used the story. I thought the gracious thing to do is say, hey, I'd offer you some time. And I think I'm pretty reasonable about talking about those kind of stories. And I thought, well, I'll push your book for you and let's just talk. And yeah, I can't believe, well, I got the same problem now. Maybe I should quit doing this. Glenn Rogers, 10 Reasons It's Not in the Superstition Mountains. Yeah, I don't know. Glenn seems to have a fine mustache on the back cover. But, yeah, I bought the book, and I thought, well, I bought the book. He's out there pushing. Why not have Glenn come out to the rendezvous, talk about his thing? Let's get some of these authors. Let them come out and talk to us about that stuff. What is the mountain called on the northwest side of the paint mine? Northwest side, are you talking about Geronimo? Geronimo Head? I don't know what you're talking about. Because the northwest, if I'm standing at the paint mine and I'm looking kind of northwestish, I'm looking at Geronimo Head. Truth or Consequences is my favorite episode. There you go. But my favorite episode is the one, I don't know, maybe this is that one where you're in the background, Kim, just walking around randomly in the background behind me and Frank. I always thought that was funny because no one ever brought up, who's that guy out there just walking around behind you? Lizard Man stuck his tail in my ear. Well, there you go. I'm glad you bring so much to the forum. It's such great stuff. But anyhow, but yeah, I think you got to be talking Geronimo Head, because the tuning mine's directly north of there, and you go around the corner to Boulder Canyon to Chuck Ayler's second camp there, where there's a bunch of stories we've told back up in that area. And then, yeah, I'm just picturing it in my head. If I'm standing there and I look, oh, you're saying northwest. You're looking back towards, I'm sorry, I was thinking northeast, which is Geronimo's Head. You're thinking Hackberry Butte, Hackberry. Okay, you're looking towards Hackberry, northwest of that. That would be Hackberry. You'd be going up into Hackberry up there, is what I know. There's the Thunderbird up there. If we ever take a hike and have the legs to do Second Water or the paint mine, because we used to do the paint mine in Boulder Canyon a lot. We ever go out there, I'll show you that in Dallas. There's a big Thunderbird and black rocks on the side of a hill. And I don't know if someone made it or the whole idea. It's big. It's probably 100 feet, at least 100 feet tall. So, but yeah, that's out there. And I saw that and took pictures of it and was telling everybody, you check that out. And they're looking at it and they're just, you could tell they were just like, what the hell? And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And as usual, they just ignored me and nobody talked about it again. It's always weird when you find something really cool or see something and point it out. I mean, you got all these guys that go out there and write books and give lectures on stuff that they imagine seeing that I cannot see for my life. And I look at it, and I'm like, I do not know what you're talking about. I can't even morph that in. And then, yeah, I'll see something that's clear as day, and you take a picture, and I'm like, I see it clear as day. Why don't we talk about that? And they just ignore me. So, can you see the Heart Window Rock up by the up by? Maybe. There used to be a road that went to Choya Tank. If you go up there the right direction, the trail, if you think about it, they used to take Model A's and Model T's up there. So that's how good that was of a road. But back then, those people were crazy driving those things. But I think you can. You get up by Choya Tank, and then there's that red rock mine up in there. It's all this reddish stuff. Everything's red. And that was the mine. The woman who was teaching at Indian school was shown, and she was driving back in there. But yeah, I know you used to be able to go back to Choya Tank. I found an old pieces of rubber from tires back in there. Desert Magazine had a letter mentioning ghost lights around Geronimo Cave back in the 1950s. Huh. Never heard that one. Well, that could have been people with flashlights. I think a lot of ghost lights in the superstitions are flashlights. If you look at people in a canyon and you really can't see the trails in the superstitions, even when you're above them looking down, you can see the people sometimes popping in and out. But if you just say you're standing in Peralta Canyon and you're up high and you look down in Peralta Canyon and you have a whole bunch of people with flashlights, let's say there's a line of like 20 people with flashlights, they're going to bob and weave and be all over the place, and they're going to disappear and reappear one by one. They're going to be, because people are moving them, and then the brush and stuff. Just imagine what that would look like, because I've seen that where you're looking over on a ridge and you see a bunch of lights and they look like they're floating and they're all over the place, and they're just people walking with flashlights. So imagine what that used to look like, which I've seen that kind of effect. So who knows what people saw on that. And Geronimo's Cave was a very popular destination site by the 50s, because that was a big Dons thing, because by then they'd renamed it, because the Dons named Peralta Canyon, Fremont Saddle, Geronimo's Cave. They named everything back, renamed everything back. In fact, the thing I'm trying to find out, and I haven't been able to find out, is the trail with Cardiac and into Barks Canyon, if that trail was in particular was an older trail, or did the Dons kind of create that? I know people went back in through that way, but it's such a well-worn trail that is like, but it doesn't make sense why you have that trail and then you have the Miner's Needle Trail, because you would think if you want to go to Miner's Needle, it takes a lot less time really to go through Cardiac and bust around. I mean, you hit Bluff Springs, and if you're really healthy and you're in great shape, an hour and a half. So you can be at Miner's Needle fast. Where Miner's Needle, you got to go up and over that little hill and stuff, and then go across the flat, and then you got to zigzag all the way up to it. It's a lot longer roundabout, easier, but if Quarter Circle U, it might be closer. But I never understood that. It's like Cardiac is like the shortcut. It's a rough road to go that way, and it could have never been a road, but I always wondered if the Dons did that. So Geronimo's Cave lights. I know there used to be ruins up in there. I haven't found the pictures. I've found a lot of Dons pictures where the Dons are sitting up in there and different stuff, because they started going up into Geronimo's Cave in the early 30s. No, mid 30s, around the mid 30s and later. And I know when they first found it and they started talking about it, it still had a little bit of the front walls in it, built up still a little bit, and then that disappeared once it was found. But the Dons did a lot of exploring in there. The Cremation Cave, there's a lot of stuff that they found, and like I said, they renamed. That was Willow Canyon and Willow Spring, the spring that goes right just north of the Dons camp, that cuts the road there by the Linesba house. That was Willow Spring, and all that was, and then when the Dons came in 1935, 34 is first, 1935, they would have started doing trek there, and then they just started renaming everything and making the trails and the treks. And as I've dug through history, there's not a lot there, that I'm able to work out of those specific things. But I know they had to have made a lot of those trails. They made the road. Peralta Road was just a barely kept up road. Mrs. Linesba, the Barclays, not many people used that road going in and out. And it was just kind of a haphazard road. And then the Dons, there was stuff from meetings improving the roads going back in there, and they did a lot of work for over several years of improving. Now the original Dons Road, I think, is not exactly where Peralta Road is, even though it's hard. It has to encompass it, because you would still see, even if it's been 80-90 years, you would still see where that road sat, no matter what they did. So I don't know, and I haven't never found anything aerial from that time where I can pick out a road because the aerial photography was really bad, and the pixelation is terrible on it. The Wayback Machine has a lot of desert magazines and archives. Greg Davis has all desert magazines. Greg Davis, if you want any treasure magazine, and he had such an overload of that stuff. I had like 10 boxes of treasure magazines, like file boxes, and I gave Mike McChesney a bunch of them. I kept quite a bit. Greg Davis has, whether it's, regardless of the name of them, and he collects each and every volume, and then has a master book of what's in, that encompasses each volume. Greg has a wall that is just solid. Every magazine you can think of, every issue of that magazine. And yeah, should go and do a video there one day of just some take pieces of it so people understand how much stuff is there. Because we've touched upon it lightly going over there, but when you go in and realize, he has every edition of this magazine for 30, 40 years, and he has every edition of this magazine and every edition of this magazine, and then you look at the library, not the Dutch hunting library, but the Arizona Southwest library, which is really, really good, and then you realize there's a whole section for the Dutch hunters, which I think, I don't know how many shelves are those? Five or six high, and there's at least 3 of them, possibly 4, and then it goes into manuscripts because he keeps manuscripts separate, and then from the manuscripts it goes to family collections, which is stuff randomly from families like the Barclays, the Frasers, and stuff like that. And then once you get beyond that, I'm not sure because things have changed a bit, but then you get into the photo albums, and the photo albums are by section of the mountains. And you want to see something on the north side of Peters Mesa, or something down in Hackberry, or you want to see something in Needle Canyon. And then Greg has those photo collections of all the trips and all the stuff of those. And then you get through those. And then it's the newspapers from the 1800s. The first couple are 65 to 1890. But, they jump a little, and then it goes each year, all the photo, or all the newspaper articles and so forth on the Lost Dutchman, just newspaper articles, and that takes several shelves. And those are big binders, which is pretty cool. And then after that, I'm trying to think. It's just so much stuff. When you get through it, one wall is the wall is 7, 8, almost 6 foot high. They might be 5.5 foot high file cabinets that are just all solid, filled with files of the Dons and the history of the Dons. It is hard to just wrap your head around how much stuff. I'm curious what the spiral staircase looks like now after the rain. I don't know. I mean, I've meant to go out, and this winter we will. I want to compile, because we have some older pictures now from Alan Tree's collection. I want to grab a bunch of pictures and kind of work a timeline of what it's looked like, and then go out and then kind of look at definitely how much it's changed and eroded over these years. Because I think it's just about done. I don't think we can clean it out and get into the tunnels anymore. I think it's just fallen in on itself so much. The only way you could do it is opening a new hole somewhere. And I don't think there is any access any other area up there. Super Walt says, "Sup, guys." Sup, Walt. Anyways, yeah, I think that at the time, my big problem, Dallas, with that was I really wanted to get an archaeologist or someone out. I wanted to get the one that had been out there in the 80s and 90s and get him up from Tucson to come out and talk some about it and look at it and talk about what his thoughts were on it. And he wouldn't answer me. And then I tried to get a couple other people, and I gave them everything I had and said, look, there's something odd. So why don't you come out? I'm not trying to throw UFOs or anything else into this. I just want to know, what do you think? And what do you think the possibilities of moving forward with something on this? Is it something really should be, and unfortunately, what Andy Sinbad did and Paul Zellner and all them when they were out there working on it probably did a lot of damage to the credibility of what we could find with it. But it's interesting. But nobody was interested. And that was a big problem because I kept pitching it. I tried to get History Channel, Discovery Channel, Science Channel, and I gave it to a lot of different people and said, look, here's all my information. Take it. You can make a show on it. You could get permits. If you could get an archaeologist or someone like a Josh Gates, not him, but someone similar and build a show, you could possibly get permits. And the state and the federal government might let you go in and kind of take a look at it. That would be cool. And nobody bit at all. They all nothing. And I thought, man, it's not that far. Man, that's a good one. So go figure that. Did Andy Sinbad leave any notes about the spiral? Very little. Most everything he left we got through Carl Broderick. Carl was his partner for a long time. So, and then Alan Tree knew Andy, and then Paul Zellner, and there's a couple other people, but he didn't, Andy wasn't writing stuff down, and Andy was kind of he was a bit of a storyteller, so you had to be careful with all that, but he told different people different things, which made it difficult sometimes, but like I said, I have a feeling, from what I've talked to people and people he tried to get interested in it over time to help him with it. It was very interesting because when Alan went out, Paul Zellner had said he dug that pit and opened, I think he helped clear that pit, but I don't think he dug that pit. And he was claiming one thing, and then Alan said, oh, Andy's, he was talking to me, and he said, Andy, all Andy's stuff that Andy did, the hoist and all that, and the platform, all that's still there. That's incredible that it's lasted all this time, even though it's fallen apart, but it's still there. He said he was kind of amazed. And I thought, because that's not the story we were told by other people who'd worked out there. And I believed Alan, that because Alan was just kind of he thought that stuff would be all gone. Did you or anybody figure out where the original entrance is? Yeah, we found it. We filmed it. They filled it in. They backfilled. It was collapsing. It's southwest of there. You can almost go a straight line. You can see it when you go down over the hill into the canyon to the southwest. You will suddenly see this spot, and you can tell it's where there was a mine. You can see where the adit was and everything, but it's all collapsed in. And that was where they started, but as they were trying to go down in through that tunnel, it was collapsed and it was unstable, so they just basically decided they couldn't go that way. And so then they went up top and then figured, well, we can maybe drive down in here, and they got lucky. Do you know Bob Boswell? Never met the man. Used to read his articles and stuff and see his cartoons, but I never met the man that I know of. Now that's when you do stupid. That's just dumb. Why would you do that? Okay. But no, I never met him. I remember his articles. God, that was back in the Phoenix Gazette days when he was first doing that stuff and all. Remember, I'm a Wallace and Ladmo kid. So, yeah, I go back to that stuff. But it's not funny, man. It's just stupid. There's a difference between funny and stupid. There is stupid funny. Benny Hill is stupid funny. Monty Python can be stupid funny. Then there's just stupid. And stupid is when somebody just needs to smack you across the side of the head and say, that was just stupid. Yeah. But, yeah, I remember, I think I got one of his books somewhere. So... But stupid is funny to me. No, it isn't. Stupid isn't funny. I know a lot of stupid people. They're not funny at all. You go in the mountains with a stupid person, you're not laughing. See, point made. Anyhow, wherever we were on that. Gerald scared me. Well, I grew up in the West Valley, and that's where Pat McMahon lived. His son Kevin McMahon went to school with me. He was in the same grade as me at Palo Verde Elementary. So we got Wallace and Ladmo to show up, but it was kind of weird because Captain Super and Marshall Good and Gerald and all that was Pat McMahon, and he lived in the neighborhood and all that. So go figure that, kind of, yeah. So it was Kevin's dad, but it was pretty cool. That was a good deal. I hated Gerald. Well, see, to me it was like a little spoiled because it was Kevin's dad. So, Are there any other bark notes than the ones we can access? You mean on the website? I don't know where Trevor's at on that. It's quite lengthy. I don't know where Trevor stopped on it because he was having to hand input the data for it. So I'll have to look at the website and look where he stopped because, he just hasn't had time. Maybe I can get Tyler to do it because Tyler actually has the free time at times, and maybe I can convince Tyler we'll pay him to upload a lot of that stuff. But yes, we need to kind of make sure that's finished because I want to concentrate. Even though I'm trying to get the museum to redo the other reprints, I want to do some of these other material we've talked about where I want the reprints available for people again, like the museum used to offer. I want to make those available for people too online. So Adam Stewart papers, the Walter Gassler manuscript, the Irwin Ruth, the 2 manuscripts from that, Al Morrow's manuscript. They're not really super long, even though Walter Gassler's is a bit. But maybe we'll have to scan that one because that one's a bit longer. But I want to make that stuff available to people. Nobody's publishing it. Nobody's putting it in books. Nobody ever cares. I think it just needs to be out there for people to access. Bark Notes is the best. I'm trying to think if there's another one I think is really, really good. What's his name? John Burbridge's is really good. That would be another one. I like Burbridge's Lost Mines and Monuments or whatever. That's a good one. And if I remember, I've wanted to take some of these apart, the staples out, and then go down and make a few copies for the Rendezvous to give away. So try to get some of them out there, but we'd like to make them available, and that's been the whole point of this. I mean, it's odd, but it was never self-promotion in any way. The whole idea for this was sharing information and talking, better than a forum, and then taking all this stuff and then having a website, which Mona Vassalou was actually important. Our line producer from Legends said, make a website, you'll get better access and you'll get people to take you more serious. It's done okay, but that will give you another medium to put information in. And so she told me to do that, and I told Trevor, let's put the website together. So we've done a number of different things to avoid the pitfall of the forums. The forums were the pitfall for everybody. There's an initial point, you get a certain number of people, it goes very, very well, and then egos get in there, it fractures, and it goes downhill. I've watched every one of them, from the Lost Dutchman mime to Desert USA's Lost Dutchman one, Peter Esposito's forum, and there's a common denominator in all of them. There's a certain people sometimes that cause those to all take dives, but it's always people not saying, if you're not serious about it and you don't really give a shit, then just stay out of it. You don't have to go in there and ruin it for everybody. And it was a very cool thing where the forums, when they were in there doing their best, it was very informative, and it was a good group of people to bounce ideas off of. And then it just got ruined every time. The best one was Ron Feldman's Lost Dutchman Mine. That one initially, everybody was on an equal level. It's what started the Rendezvous. It was an awesome place to be, and you got to interact and other people. I'd say Jim Hat on Desert USA, because Tom Collenborn used to post there a lot. That was pretty good too. And those were probably the best two. Because the information you were getting was literally just everybody trying to work together to do stuff, which is how the Rendezvous happened. And then other people had egos, and sometimes people have egos to think they have to be the hottest shit in town, and they ruin everything because they have the holier than thou attitude, and it started ruining it. That's why I will always, I might look in and post a K once in a blue moon, but I try to stay out of forums now because I never had a problem. I always tried to stay kind of good about it. The only mistake I made was there was one where it was kind of open forum for everybody to talk, and I used to talk about my little league baseball teams I was managing and stuff like that. And in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have, because it opened me where I was just having casual conversations. I wish we would have kept that first site purely Dutchmen and nothing else, and we would have, I think it would have survived better, but it can never survive long enough because the assholes get hit. Burbridge hunted, yeah, Burbridge was with Storm. Burbridge was with Storm, and then he got enough of Barry, like pretty much everybody does. And once he had his fair share of Barry, that was it. But Burbridge was pretty smart. And the one thing Greg Davis told me when I first got interested in Burbridge, it was some, I don't know what it was. And I asked him about him, and Greg got all excited. And I said, yeah, John Burbridge, man, this guy seems to be all over the place, some pretty cool stuff. And Greg said I got part of his collections and letters and all kinds of stuff. And I started going through it. Burbridge was where Storm and so many of these guys really weren't in the bush, like breaking it down and stuff. Barry Storm wanted to be famous. He liked being popular. John Burbridge was just pure an adventurer, and he impressed the hell out of me because there's stuff he found, things he was doing. I was like, you're a man doing that. Sorry, ladies, but yes, he was going in and finding stuff, and he was trying to document them best he could. And in that era, and even after that, was when all these guys were trying to do things and change things. Burbridge is the only person I know of that documented all these spires and stuff, and the markers and the monuments out around Bluff Springs. I don't know if any of them exist anymore. And he was going around trying to make the connection. Now, his collection got split. Greg got part of it, and someone else got part of it. And I don't know what happened to the other part. But Greg got a lot of it, a lot of the photos, a lot of information, a lot of maps, a lot of stuff. But there is missing information that would be awesome to have from Burbridge, and we don't have it because of the other person got a significant amount of stuff. Let's get Salvador on a mule and find Storm's Cave. I know where Storm's Cave is. I know where there's one. If you're talking the one at Tortilla, there's one that Sal says has the chest in it. And I've heard that story from 4 or 5 different people. It varies, but I know where that's at. I wanted Sal to go up because I wanted to kind of do it with Sal because I want to see Sal show me where it's at. But I know where there's a bunch of Storm stuff is up. If you go in through, you have to go in through, go through Garden Valley up into Hackberry Creek and go up from there. And she showed me where they found a bunch of his stuff. He knew Storm, so I know where a bunch of that stuff is. Yeah, the one up there, up on the hill. Bob circled it for me and showed me where it was at. And I said, well, when do you want to go? And Bob said, we're too freaking old. He said, I'm just showing you because that's where it's at. Yes. I don't know which one you're saying. You're talking about the Sal chest one. If you're talking about that one, yeah, I'm not. I've heard so many stories about it, and there's several people who have told me different places to go. I know where it's supposed to be. Someone told me exactly where it should be, and I said, did you go up to it? And they said no. And so this winter we'll go. I'll go. I don't have a problem. I'm getting tired of Sal not going. But I wanted Sal's, and Sal always said, I didn't open it. And I said, well, let's go get it. And I said, I'll take a pry bar, and let's go see what's in there. It's just books or something, or who knows what's in there. But it was the cave. And the problem is each person had kind of the same story, but little different. And that always puzzles me, is why is your story different than his story? Why are your stories all slightly different? You had to see the same thing. But Sal's was, there was an old lantern in there and an old cot, and there's a chest and several other things he talked about. And I said, why don't you guys take any proof of it out? And shrug. And I'm like, but he said, the chest is too heavy. And I said, well, we don't need to take the whole chest. We'll just open it up and see what's in it. And I said, if there's some older books, but we can catalog it and document it. And, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, I guess we could do that. Well, then we need to go and all this. And, okay. And then it's been, 4 or 5 years. It's been like, okay, Sal, you just let me know when you got, okay, you let me know. Okay, well, we'll park. I know where to park. And he confused me where to park and how to go, because it was like he wanted to take me on like a trip through the Amazon to do this. And then finally I just told him, don't we just park here and can't we just go straight up this way? And he's like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, let's do that. And that was the last time we talked about it. So he just did not, but I know he had some troubles, so I'm not going to say anything. It's not like Sal's going to be in the forum. But, yeah, I don't know if he ever watches our videos and stuff, but yeah, it would be fun to go up there. But every time we have a trip planned, we're supposed to be in Fish Creek, we're supposed to do this with Sal, he just never makes it there. Well, we don't know what's in the chest. It could just be clothes and stuff. Everybody's dimensions of the chest was different. Sal just said it was too heavy for anybody, and because of the terrain, to be able to try to get out of there. And I came up with different ideas and ran it by him of how to get it out. And then I told him, why don't we just bust it open and then we'll see what's in it first. And if it's just clothes and a bunch of crap, cooking utensils and stuff we don't care about, which it could be, a bunch of iron skillets and pots and stuff, we'll just document it and leave it. If there's books, who knows what books? I mean, who knows what's in there? And, but Sal seemed very interested. And then the next year, yeah, when we going? And I told him, well, you just tell me. And then I told him timelines of when you call me when you got that Saturday off or whatever. Well, I can't go on Saturdays. Well, why? What the hell are we doing that? Only go this day. Only go that day, So it got complicated. And then it just gets put off because I'm just like, I just don't want to. It's not an easy spot to go into. There's no trail or nothing, so you're just going to be bushwhacking up in there. So, original Old Levi jeans are worth a lot. No, but that's not my treasure hiding idea. I like to find something cool. So I told Sal, we'll see what's in there. If it's a bunch of stuff that, but how many people have seen it? I know Dave Cook said he knew where it was. Alan Tree said he knew where it was. Salvador said he knew where it was. I'm trying to think of a couple of the other people, and they all left it there all these years. That's what blows my mind. I mean, nobody's bothered. Now, Jesse Feldman told me he found a chest up in Squaw, near Squaw, and he found it, but it was empty. And he talked about it and told me about where it was and stuff, and he just left it up there. And he said, yeah, he doesn't know what was in there. Someone probably took whatever was there. He said he was very excited when he found it. And that's Jesse's story. But my point being is, a lot of times you find stuff in the mountains, and if it, definitely old camp stuff, you don't see a need to take it. Just once in a while, if I know it's a particular person's camp. So, like Herman's cabin, I took a piece of the stove pipe, and I got a couple pieces from that. There's something like that. Like, okay, I got this memento. And like I told Greg Davis once, bricks and things from old buildings and adobe bricks from houses, I use those to build and work in the yard. And then I have pieces of history built into the property. So that's that. If there was gold bars... Yeah, but that's the thing is, okay, so we're talking about 3 guys that have been known to be in the mountains, and how come they didn't just take a pry bar? And how many times, it's just like you didn't go back. And see, that's where I kind of have a problem with the story, and then you're not making it convenient to go back. So that's where my interest starts to wane, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to drive all the way out there, and instead of doing something else, or doing other stuff, instead of doing that, we're going to do this. Okay, that's cool, but let's do it. Okay, how far? And then it's the whole thing of like, well, how long do you think it's going to take? It'll take us about 4 or 5 hours. Okay, there and back. Yeah, and then there becomes that guessing thing. Well, how far is it? It's that, and then they just keep changing the parameters. So Alan told me it was there. he didn't know what was in it. He had zero interest in it. So I take it that it wasn't really full of, it was full of, for all we know, get up there, it's full of rocks, which is why I would open it. There's nothing worse than finding a chest full of rocks and hauling it out of the mountains. At least I wasn't the same old I couldn't find it again story. Well, that's why I wanted him to go, because they can mark an X, and they all told me, and said, you go up here and it's on your left, and they were all kind of conveniently, okay, but you're all friends, because Dave and Sal and Alan, every one of them that told me the story, I think Rick told it to me, they all knew each other, so that always is a problem too. They're all good friends, so they're kind of can be telling me the same story they've been telling each other. So I was kind of like, okay, one of you guys take me up and show me so you can point out where it is, and if we don't find it. I also told Sal we were supposed to make the trip to where he saw the Black Legion guys. And I'll never go back. I'll never go back. I'm done with that. No, I'll never go back. And I said, Sal, you want to go back there? We can show me where the rock you hid behind and all that stuff, and maybe stay the night there? And he's like, yeah, cool, let's go. I'm like, okay. Never heard back about that one either. Any gemstones found in the Superstitions? People have told me rubies. I don't know. I've never seen anybody that's found anything that came out and said, yeah, there's this or this. I know gold, silver, copper, silica. Of course, you have the Chuck Crawford claim of platinum, which I don't know if anybody could ever verify that. But I know gold, silver, copper, that kind of thing. And then I know there was a lot of people were pulling silica out because, let's face it, during the Depression in certain periods, everything was worth something. So the silica mine, John Pierce was doing silica. Even though, was it just they found the silica and they were really looking for gold, but okay, I can make a few bucks on this. I don't know. I don't know the history of it, but I know that's what they put on the claim papers and stuff in some of those. So gemstone, and you figure with the volcanic activity and stuff, there's always possibilities, but because of the terrain and so forth, I don't know. And I've heard people tell stories. You have there's Jason Fritch. There we go. We talked about you earlier, but we're done with you. But you'll be at the rendezvous and talking. Howdy. But we were talking about the gems and different stones and the superstitions. But Sal has his giant emerald. And then, but we're almost done, Jason, man. But you can always rewatch it. See, that's the thing, is the one thing, I have a time traveling machine on the internet, so you can go back and watch this whole thing and pretend to be part of the whole thing. Sal says the emerald, there's the guy said the diamonds, which were just quartz crystals. I know there's a couple people interested in some ruby stories back in there, but I've never had anybody show me anything physically that I would sit there and go, well, that would be, I get that. So that's, so that's where I'll just lay it. I've talked to gemologists. Frank's a gemologist, but I don't know about the extraction part of it and stuff. But yeah, I've heard stories occasionally from someone. This makes a story, but I've never seen any proof of anything other than obsidian and then like Apache tear, that type of stuff. And what's the other one? What's the stuff? Chrysocolla, which they'll make some jewelry out of that. The high grade chrysocolla that was found out by the Upper Dacite, and the Upper Dacite, which So there's different minerals, but gemstones, I'm going to still plead that I don't, I've heard the stories. That's it. The talking holy stones. Well, those aren't gemstones. That's quartz and amethyst. I guess it kind of is. I don't know. They're not talking. They still haven't talked. Did you ever look in Tom's Crystal Cave Haunted Canyon? Nobody's allowed to talk about that or be in there. So I'm pretty sure I know where it is now. Tom was very, 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 very tight about that. And Jesse and I and Randy were inquiring a lot about it. And he was a tough nut to crack on that because he was so worried about someone messing it up. I know so much information about that stupid thing, the bear skeleton, and there was some spelunkers. They got some cave guys to go down in it to see how deep, which it is deep. But yeah, I knew a lot about it, and then I kind of respected it after a while, realizing, well, if you documented it, does anybody really need to know where it's at a certain point? Now, I've never seen the pictures, but he documented it. He talked about it and the interior and stuff. And then I've seen diagrams of, where he went through and stuff. So I kind of like, once I learned so much information, then the chase for it, I think the chase was to see if you could crack Tom and figure it out from his little cryptic clues. And then I just kind of thought, it's probably best to leave that alone. So I know approximately where it is about. And then I just kind of like dropped it. That was what, Pedro Moraga? Was that the guy's name that found it and talked about it? And Tom went off that. I know there's a couple people still know where it's at. And I don't think those people are talking. So it's just, I think it's a very, there's several places in the mountains that I know their approximate location, and I know a person or two that might know where it's at, and they're not talking, and I just kind of leave it alone and figure there's a reason at this point for the preservation. And I've been disappointed. There was a spot where there was a little shallow alcove that had some arrows stacked in it up against a wall, and there was a bunch of other stuff sitting there, and you could see where he'd had some stones to make fire and stuff. But it was like this place, a guy was, probably a Hohokam, could have been Apache, but somebody was staying where they were hunting in the area, and it was their little camp to stay out of the weather. And I found it, and then someone else found it, and they took some pictures and posted it. And I don't know where they posted the pictures at. I'm trying to remember. It could have been Desert USA. It might have been Treasure Net. It wasn't, I don't know. I think it was Treasure Net because that'd be too late. Anyways, I remember seeing it all, and I just kept my mouth shut because I knew where it was, and you got to kind of climb to it, and I was just kind of letting it be. And then I went out there, and then I just decided, well, whoever I was with, I said, I'm going to go take a dump. I'll be about a half hour, 40 minutes, because I knew it was right around the corner, and I could get up to it. And I went up, and the stuff was all gone, and you could see people had been digging around in there, and I was like, okay. So that's a shame because it probably was there, and people knew about it forever, and Dick Holmes supposedly had, but he had an onyx and opal mines, but I don't think those were in the Superstitions. I don't know where they were. And then there's the argument: was it Dick Holmes or Dick Holmes? Was it because it's Richard Holmes? So is it his dad or him owns the onyx mine? I don't know. So I'm sure someone knows, and I'm sure Thomas Glover, had all that information, and you could look it up because it's going to be in the county records. He would have filed on them because it was those were filed claims. So you can look them up, and it'll tell you what area they're in. I don't think they're in the Superstition Mountains because he was out of town at those, and that was one of the arguments, that he was out of town at his onyx or opal mines when Jacob Waltz died. And I thought they would be up north, but I don't know. Like, again, that's a good one. I'm going to write that down, where those onyx opal mines were, because I'm such not a Dick Holmes fan because of obvious reasons. But that is an interesting, because once I did a bunch of stuff on him and found out how much BS there was, I just kind of got away from it. That was I was doing that with and working on a lot of stuff with trading information with Gary Cundiff and Larry Hanna. And those guys are brilliant, man. I wish those guys were around. I wish they were real. They could be lurking and listening to me right now. I always give those guys credit. There was a number of times I hit dead ends and stuff, and I was like, I don't even know how to think or which way. And then they would send me documents that would just start pushing things again. It wasn't that they knew, they just realized, oh, he's here, he's got all this, we'll give him this, and that should help us all move forward. Those guys were brilliant. And they kind of wasted me on the Dick Holmes stuff, because a lot of information they got on Dick Holmes made me realize I'm done with him. Wow, we're at 5:03. We made it. But yeah, that's one we'll have to follow up on. And I will follow up on that because, yeah, so we can talk about it next time, because I'm kind of curious where they were too. I think he had both. I think there was an opal and an onyx mine at different periods. So, but he had a lot of different interests. I mean, there was a funny newspaper article, and if you dig, you can really find it. And I ran into it one day where it was shortly after the Walt stuff. It's got to be 1892 or 1893, and it's like Dick Holmes' opal or onyx mine has had some big break, and it talks how he's going to be able to finally quit washing dishes down at this place. And I'm thinking, you got all that gold from Walt. He lied. He supposedly bought a house and all this stuff and had the new kid, and he was doing really good, and that's how the family built that other nice house and all this stuff. And now we're finding out he's washing dishes. And I'm like, hold on, something doesn't make sense in the story. Supposedly this, we got to cheers. Yeah, we forgot to say Bob Ward and Clay Wurst and Mr. Corbin himself. Yeah, that's Richard Holmes. So I think the whole thing is Richard Holmes in the papers and stuff. But we'll be able to figure that out. Only so much you can do with it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to get out of here, too. I got to pick up groceries. I got to watch television. I got to relax. I got some work to do and a couple other things, and then start getting ready. I got to get my gear out and start going through my gear and knock all the bugs out of it to get the spiders out for the winter, because it's getting close to that time. So thank you very much. If anybody hears from Mr. Glenn Rogers, he gets so much promotion. We got Jason here in Jason's book, but Jason's talking. But if we can ever get Mr. Rogers to come out and talk for 15 minutes about his book too, it'd be nice. The idea for the rendezvous is to share information and share stories, so it'd be great to have him out as well. He'll probably show up, won't tell us who he is, and then come out and give us a critique of things afterwards. But hope everybody has a great weekend. We didn't see Mr. Larry today. I do not believe at all. He must be lurking or catching up later. So there you go. And we didn't hear from Bobby. We didn't see Bobby. So that's another one. So Mr. Bunzel wasn't here. Man. So a couple of the regulars. So I don't know what's going on. But we did make it through. We made it through the entire hour. We did not lose ourselves, lose buffering. And finally someone explained to me what to plug in when I have a problem. So now we're good to go from here on out. So always remember that. But thank you, everybody. Catch Chasing Legends on Monday. And catch us back next Friday for live rendezvous, 14th, 15th, 16th. Until the next time, everybody have a great weekend. We will catch you later. This was Legends Live.